All right, we are live. Hi,
All right.
Simon.
Hello, Paula. How are you today?
I'm doing great, doing great. Thanks. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. A busy week, but a good week, as always. So I can't complain. And yeah, really excited about today's webinar. I think this is like of all of the ones that we do, I think this one and then the culture series that we do, this is like, those are my favorites. So I'm excited for this one.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the culture one, the working across cultures was such a great one. I had so much fun.
Yeah, yeah, and that's always like one where it's fun, like everybody coming in the chat, like everybody joining. It's always fun to see what other people are saying and where they're tuning in from. So if you're joining in the chat, by all means, let us know your name, where you're tuning in from, and send it into the general chat so we can all see. I'm Simon, and I'm from Copenhagen. So if there's anybody in the Nordic regions tuning in, let us know. And elsewhere, like where are you calling in from? Paula, you're down there in the beautiful regions of Spain. How are things down there?
Yeah, things are going well. It's still very hot, so it's still the summer here. I see a lot of people are telling us in the chat. We have people in Israel, Netherlands, Myanmar, Israel. I see some people are sending the message to everyone, and some of them are just sending it to us. So if you want to share your messages, just make sure that it says everyone, just so that um, we can all read. Great. So this is the topic that we have for today, right? Deliver impactful and engaging presentations, but perhaps we can give a super quick introduction as well as.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. It's great to meet everyone. If this is your first webinar, we'll give a quick little introduction around Talaera. And yeah, what we do is we provide business English training for professionals around the world. So we work with professionals from, I mean, small companies all the way up to enterprise level professionals. And we focus on, yeah, topics like this, presentation training, cross-culture training. We focus on how to speak up in meetings and teamwork around those aspects, all around it as English being your second language, right? So, we're excited to talk about this topic today, which is going to be a big thing that we hear about from a lot of our clients is, yeah, I need to be able to present effectively, but I'm doing it in English and I don't feel so confident doing that. And so that's what we're going to be covering today. My name's Simon. I'm the people and culture manager at Talaera. I started at Talaera as a trainer, actually. So I started as one of the trainers while I was doing my master's degree in international human resources. And then as we are, one thing led to the other, and now I'm the people and culture manager. So I'm really excited to be here. And if you've listened to some of our podcasts before, then you'll know Paula and I do a lot of these things together. Paula, how about yourself?
Yeah, it's always great to work together on webinars, podcasts, and so on. So yeah, my name is Paula. I see that about half of the people here haven't been to a webinar before. It's their first time. So
Wow. All right.
exciting. I'm the director of marketing and content, and that basically means that I make sure that the materials, the content that we create to help you learn or improve your business English is actionable. It's stuff that you can apply directly to your life. It's not something that a textbook says that worked 20 years ago. So we really put a lot of emphasis into, okay, what is true to today? What is something that will work in a global environment today? So yeah, that's a bit what we do.
Yeah. And so I guess that means like less focus on how to write a fax correctly and more focus on emails and Slack messaging and things like that. So we're really trying to take that focus. Yeah. Again, if you're joining, let us know where you're calling in from. It's always great. Our webinars are always super, collaborative. So we try to get a lot of thoughts from you guys, from our community, our Talaera community out there. And as well, they're always super international. So it's great to get ideas from people around the world. So let us know where you're calling in from. Today, we're talking about presentations. Let's jump into it. What is a common mistake when making presentations? Yeah, this is this is a big one. I don't know, Paula, what would you say? What do you think? And if you're in the chat, right, what do you think is a really common mistake in presentations?
Ooh, I think one of the most common mistakes in presentation, there's two, for me, there's two. The first one is to assume that the people we're talking to either know or care about what we're talking about. And the second one is to make it very dense and hard to follow. For me, those are
Yeah.
the two ones. If the speaker knows that or knows what I care about and they make it engaging, you can tell me about anything.
Right, right. And that's why, we want to be very clear. If you're here for presentations, that's right, you're in the right spot. So we hope you are tuning in for that. So yeah, so just so we're all clear, absolutely. And then as well with making too much information in one spot, right? We try to do that. We try to not do that at Talaera, and we will be sending all of the slides after our webinar today. So if you're tuning in and you think we're going a bit fast on a certain topic, it's okay. You're going to get that information as well. But again, write in the chat, what are some common mistakes made in presentations? I think for me, kind of the biggest one is, knowing your audience, right? Who is your audience? That's a huge one. But also, I would say, lack of preparation. And we'll talk a little bit about that because a lot of our students and clients come to us with what they think of as the right way to prepare for a presentation. And we're going to be discussing kind of a different way to do that. This is a huge one, right? Like 75% of adults are affected by a fear of public speaking. And I mean, it's very natural, I think, if we actually think about it. Belonging is such an innate sense. It's such a deep sense of our feeling safe, our feeling, those hierarchy of needs of us being able to feel safe, that we have our community or who we work with. It's how we earn a living. And now we have to make a speech in front of them, and they're all going to have a chance to judge me and to think, oh, wow, like, he's such an idiot. Oh my God. Right. And so that can be very, very intense. I mean, is this a fear for you, Paula?
It used to be. It used to be. I used to be very, very shy, and public speaking was not something I enjoyed at all. And I remember I used to teach at a university in Vietnam, and you've also taught in Vietnam. I don't know if you remember, but they have these. What the teacher stands is like a step above everyone else, so you're higher than everyone else. I was super nervous. It was one of my first speeches that I gave. And I tripped over and fell in front of 200 people. And then I think after that I said, whatever happens is not gonna be as bad as that. So after that, I'm actually much better. I'm okay. But it was one of those experiences like, oh my God.
That's one of those things. The show must go on. And once you've done that, like, I think, you can, anything's better than that. I mean, the worst I think I ever had, and when I was doing any public speaking, was one of like my eye contacts like started to fold over in my eye, and so I was like twitching on my eye, and so now obviously I wear glasses when I do it. So we just learn by doing. We learn by
you learn.
Exactly right. So today's agenda, what are we covering today, Paula?
Yes. So the main goal for today is that we know how to deliver impactful and engaging presentations online. And to be able to do that, we broke down our presentation or our webinar into three main sections. The first one is the key information. I saw a lot of comments that said, they missed the point, or they almost like it's really hard to get that key message across. So how can we do that? We'll talk about that. Second section, we'll talk about what makes your structure impactful. So impactful structure and also slides, just to briefly touch on it. And then when it comes to your delivery, how can you make it more engaging? So those three sections: key information, impactful structures, and slides, and engaging delivery.
Great. And again, there's going to be so many tips, so much information here that you will have access to all of this. We're going to send all of this afterwards. And so you can even use this as a big cheat sheet for your next presentation. Go through and pick out the things that work that you really want to use. We're going to start with key information, right? And this is exactly right. You just mentioned someone said, missing the point, right? What's the key information? And this is actually more difficult than it sounds to narrow down to the key information. So what are we going to learn in this section, Paula?
Yeah, so we're going to give very, very specific, like step-by-step tips to help you find out what info should you include, what info can you leave out, and then how do you organize it all so that you are able to bring across your key message.
Right. And that's one, if you've ever been in a webinar or a presentation or anything like that, and the person just starts speaking and is just going around and around and around, or even you feel yourself going like around and around, and you think, oh my God, what's the key point here, right? What is the key information? This is what we're talking about. How can we stick on this path so that people are together with you in the audience and they're following along? So let's get into it. The first tip, ask yourself, could this be a Loom video? Shout out Loom. We are huge Loom fans at Talaera. What is Loom?
Yeah, so Loom is this tool that allows you to record 5-minute clips, and it saves so much time. So if you are about to meet your team and that whole like 1 hour meeting could have been a short Loom video, just do it. If your presentation doesn't really require any interaction, it doesn't really require any of the human aspect that you can bring to the table, then it might be just better to record a short clip with Loom or with any other tools. This is the one that we use, but it just saves so much time. And yeah.
Thinking even number one, does this need to be a presentation, right? If you're a manager, do I need to have this big presentation, right? Can I just send a short Loom video or a couple short Loom videos and do it like that? I mean, yeah, we love this tool. Definitely would recommend it. Okay, so key information. We want to bring across a key message. Step number one, we want to write down what you think you need to present. Why is this step number one?
So step number one is to really, it's almost like a brain dump where you write down, I actually use sticky notes, the yellow ones. And
old school. All right.
I'm not even joking.
There you go.
and I write down really all the information, like the keywords or the main points that I want to touch on, all of them related to that topic. The reason this is important is because usually when we give a presentation, we know a lot about the topic. There are a lot of things that we want to share. Okay, it doesn't mean you'll end up talking about them, but do write them down. And we have an example on the next slide. So when we were preparing this specific webinar, there were a lot of things that we wanted to cover, like engaging the audience and preparation tips and phrases and how to deliver the key information, the structure, slides, design, delivery. There's so much that we wanted to cover. I don't know if we'll cover all of it, but this is what we wanted to share with people. So that's the first step.
And it is that first part is like capture. If anybody knows, getting things done, like the GTD method is step number one is you need to capture, get it out of your head, down on a page, down on sticky notes, if that's what you want to use, whatever it is, get it down so you can see it and work with it, right? We have some clients that say, okay, I like to write it down. I like to write out everything I'll say word for word and like a big script. Would you recommend that?
Generally not. I think it's okay to rehearse some phrases or some sentences that are difficult for you if you're not a native English speaker. But in general, writing very keywords or like key information or key phrases works much better than spelling it all out.
And this is something actually I remember working with. She was a high up at a company and was doing board meetings, and she had always prepared for board meetings the same way of writing everything out, like scripting everything out. And she felt that she needed that that support. Like if everything goes bad, I'll have my script right there, right? But really what that did is that blocked her from being able to feel comfortable and being able to go off of that script. So she was almost putting herself in this box of, I need to do this. And I've had multiple clients that have done this. And then I was pushing her more and more to step away from that and go to more of this bullet point method. And with that, she was able to free up and feel much more kind of relaxed when she did it. So it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it really is very effective. Okay, moving on, thinking about your audience, and we talked about this. Why is this so critical when we're talking about, bringing across a key message?
Well, basically because those are the people who will be listening to you. And sometimes we, as speakers, we think a lot, we spend a lot of time thinking about what we want to say and who we want to be in the eyes of the audience and how we want to be perceived. So it's all about us, but what truly matters is the people listening to you. That's at the end of the day what matters. And so really understanding, what do they need, what is their background, how much do they know, what do they want to get out of this? Like here today, when we started the webinar, I thought, okay, if I am a learner or if I am a very great professional, but I struggle with presentations in English, what would I want to get out of it? And so that's why we made it so step by step and tangible. And also it has to do with the vocabulary that you use. So here in example one, we have a message that we are saying, for example, the CTO, very technical person, is talking to one of the developers, a very technical person as well. And the example could look like, the list for that query is populated manually by the server from users. We are not able to determine that engagement list from such a complex expression. If you did not understand, it's because you may not be a technical person, just like me. I don't know what I just read. So if you want to say that exact same information, but to the account manager or to the marketing director, perhaps you want to change that information and tell them, you need to set the user status manually, because that's what they care about.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking about that, right, is we see this all the time cross-functionally. We work with a lot of people in the tech space, and we see this all the time, like product managers who have to give a presentation, to the whole team. And halfway through, they can just see people like looking at their phone or what have you, right? Speak it to me in my language. Exactly right. And this is another point, right? Like, don't assume that your audience knows or cares, right? We think this is important. And a lot of times we're wrapping it up in our own ego of what we know to be important, but the reality might be a little bit different, right?
It's harsh, but it's true.
Yeah. And so what's a way that we can find out what the audience cares about? What's a way that we can find out, what are they coming to listen to? What we just did at the very beginning, we set a poll out, right? How many of you are new to Talaera webinars? How many of you have ever attended any of our events before? You can do things like that really quickly, really easily, even before you do your presentation, so that you get a better idea. You get those data points so that you can know, okay, I have more of an idea that, not everybody in this webinar knows all the Talaera lingo that we use or knows all these things. So that automatically helps me out and provides me with a data point.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's absolutely it. And the third step is actually my favorite, and it puzzles a lot of people when I've used this in my lessons as well, when I used to teach, and it works wonders, and it gets people off. It gets people off guard. So it's decide the what, why next of your presentation. If there's anything you want to take away from today, that is finding out or learning how to decide your what, why next. So the what is your presentation about? That is going to be your key message, and you should be able to say it in a short sentence. Why should they listen to you? That is your purpose. Why should they listen to your presentation and not read an article about it? Why should they listen to you and not just watch a video? Or, could it have been an email? So why should they listen to you? And then the next, what should happen next? What is the action that you're expecting? Do you hope that they use a checklist? Do you want them to do something with the email that you're going to send them? Will you send a follow-up? What is going to happen next? So yeah, the what is your presentation about? That's the key message. The why should they listen to you? That is your purpose or the purpose of the presentation. And then what should happen next is the action or the next steps.
Great.
It sounds simple. It sounds very simple, but every time I've started a session and a student has told me, can we work on this presentation? I tell them, sure, but first answer these 3 questions. What, why next? And I'm like, wait, what? I don't know.
But it boils it down, right? And that's what we talked about. We want to boil down, we want to get to that, the essence, right? We want to get to the main thing of what is this about? And this does a great job of doing that, of kind of boiling it down. And then finally, we get to this, we have it boiled down. And now the last thing we want to do, we want to filter out that unnecessary information, right? And again, this is where you have to be very harsh with yourself. I mean, we've done this together when we've prepared webinars before, where we've really thought like, I hate losing this slide. I love it. I want it in there. Like, it matters to me, but is it relevant to my audience, right? That's a difficult thing to do, but it's a very important one.
That's it. So one is it all relevant to my audience? And the other one, are there any small details or statistics or numbers that you can access later? So looking at a spreadsheet in a presentation is not only boring, but perhaps it's just not helpful in most cases. There was also one of you that said in the chat that people just provide too much information. Sometimes it's not necessary. So if you can send it later, probably send it later. Now, once you have all this, how do you put that ribbon on? How do you organize that information? Well, that is the very last point, and it's the rule of 3. Have you heard the rule of 3, people in the chat?
Yeah, I think probably they'll say, of course, I've heard the rule of 3. I've seen your 3 examples, each with 3 different points. And absolutely, I mean, if anybody can add any others that they know of, like, please do, because I think these are the best 3 examples, right? Like, I don't, like, Paula, break it down for us. What is the rule of 3 and why is it so useful?
So the rule of 3 is a technique that is used in marketing, in literature, and it's a way of making our speech more memorable or our message more memorable. And it consists of grouping our ideas or our words in groups of 3. Our brains love patterns, and it's the smallest number that can create a pattern. And so here in marketing, we have just do it. I'm loving it, has 3 syllables. See what's next has 3 syllables, but you also have the 3 musketeers, the 3 little pigs. It's really used in many, many places. So try to summarize all your information or group your information in blocks of 3. Before, at the beginning, we showed all those little sticky notes that we had. Go back to your sticky notes and try to only keep 3 of them. And here, I think we added that example, if you can show it, Simon. So those were all the sticky notes that we added at the beginning. And then that is how we decided to summarize them. And these are the 3 main sections in today's webinar: key information, structure and slides, and the delivery.
Right. And so what we did here is we boiled down into themes, right? And that's a great way to think about it, is what themes can I boil down to for these 3, right? And this is a great thing, a great way to end. After you've done all of these steps and you've boiled everything down, you've filtered out all the unnecessary information, now you can make your rule of 3. And so then when you do your actual presentation, you have very clean 3 steps that you can just show people, 1, 2, 3. And then people will remember, okay, what were the, when you walk out of a presentation and there were 15 different points the person was trying to make, that's much harder to remember anything than when you walk out and say, what was one of them? Well, there were 3. One of them was, okay, yeah, engaging delivery. And then it becomes much easier because there's the pattern in there. So yeah, great one. Rule of 3. So again, key information when you want to bring across a key message, write it down, right? Get it out of your head. You want to think about the audience, think about who you're actually speaking to. The what, why next, right, is so actionable, right? It's very, I love that, Paul. That's very, very actionable. And then we want to filter it out, check your ego, right? Check your ego. Do I want this or does my audience want this? And I think you have to be honest with yourself. And then break it down to the rule of three. Really great checklist there for you when you're getting ready for your next presentation. Final tip here around examples. So why do we want to provide examples?
Well, sometimes we find it very difficult to extrapolate the theory and apply it to our real life. And when you provide examples, then we are really great once we see the example, then say, oh, then I know how to apply this in my real life. So that's just why we did in the section that we just showed, in every single step there was a little example, so that you can see, okay, how can you apply it in your real life. Someone just asked if we will send the slides, and yes, we will send the slides later, for sure. So you don't worry about it. There's also lots of vocabulary coming up as well.
Great. Okay, so yeah, basically to break it down, and anybody see anything interesting here? Like anybody? I would love to hear it in the chat. I don't know, any theme that we're applying right here. Has anybody thrown it in there?
Yeah, exactly. And there's Marta actually asked a question and said, this key three rule or this rule of three rule should be presented at the beginning or at the end of a presentation as agenda introduction or summary conclusion. And I think you just answered the question, Simon. You can use it for both. It can be a great way to set out your agenda, and it can also be a great way to summarize your ideas.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so our final recap for this section is these 3 points, so keep that in mind. Let's move on. Now we're going to get more technical here, right? Like when you're actually building out the presentation, what do we need to keep in mind? What things do we really need to consider when we have all this information? We've put it down, and we've have our rule of three. Now we need to think about, what's this going to look like? How do we structure this? And Paula, this is where I think you're really great at. I mean, our director of content right here, Paula, does so much of this with the content of how we think about structure. What are we going to cover in this section, Paula?
Yes, so we'll touch on how you start your presentation strong and how to end it with a powerful recap. And then we'll touch base on how to design your slides for maximum impact. We focus always on communication and communication skills. So this is really not a design session. We're not designers, but we do understand what it takes to get your message across when it comes to slides.
Awesome. All right. So one quick tip before we get into the starting strong, right, is practicing your opening and then practicing your closing. I mean, ideally, don't we want to just practice the whole presentation before we give it?
Yes, ideally, yes. But if you have that fear of public speaking, if you don't feel confident, perhaps speaking in English, if you're just insecure, what really, really, really works, and if you only have time to practice one part, that has to be the beginning and the end. So you are confident about how you're starting and you're confident about how you're ending. We'll explain why, or an additional reason why, but one of the great things that this does is that it gives you a confident boost.
Yeah.
It's been 10 minutes that you've prepared, or 5 minutes that you've prepared. Everything has gone smoothly. Your body's telling you that you can do it. And once you're getting towards the end, then you know very well what's going to happen.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. And this great. I love this. I mean, Paula, you always bring in these psychological aspects of like this primacy and recency effect, right? And I think this is so fascinating. Can you just give us like a quick overview of why this means? I mean, you just touched on it with the opening and the closing, but what does that mean for the audience?
Yes. So we remember much, much, much more the beginning and the end. The stuff in the middle, like the one we're talking about now, we're halfway through. People may forget. I don't know. I hope not. But theory says people will remember much better the beginning and the end. So
Right.
try to put a lot of emphasis into that. That's also one of the reasons why you want to practice that opening and closing. So the next question would be, okay, how do we make the intro and the outro interesting? Well, one tip is to do very little self-introduction. I think there might be some controversy here. Some people say, no, but you need to show what you've done and what you do and build credibility. Yeah, you can do that. But I do think that if your content is strong enough, that is what is going to give you the credibility that you need. So introductions are great, but just don't spend so much time talking about yourself. What do you think?
And so I think that you make a really good point around self intro, right? So like it doesn't real I mean, I think it's a little bit weird if we just stood up here for the first 10 minutes and just talked about why we are qualified to talk about this. What we wanted to do is really jump into it, right? Why people are here. We want to think about the audience. Now, your introduction, you can do a lot with the introduction to make it engaging, right? To hook people, right? We want to do that definitely. So when we talk about the intro, that's a big part, very important part. But self-introduction, yeah, it can be a little bit self-grandizing if you're just talking about yourself a little bit. Give a few points and people can trust because they'll see the content and they'll see how you're delivering it. And that's immediately gonna give that trust. So I definitely agree. Okay, so doing the quick introduction, walk us through these steps. How do we do this?
Yes. So for the quick introduction, and this is more for the non-native English speakers that don't feel strong about their English. This is a very, very simple 4-step framework for that quick introduction. So welcome people, and you can click next and we can show one of the sentences. Something very simple. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to this webinar. Then you can introduce the people. This can be yourself, or if you're in a meeting with other people that may be speaking later, it's great if you can introduce them as well. My name is Susan, and I'm part of the design team here at Globex Corporation. Something simple. You can say who you are, what you do, but don't just expand on that too much. You can introduce the topic, something like the main goal of this presentation is, and I love this phrase to introduce the topic because you're not saying today we're going to talk about the wonders of whatever. It's fine to say it, but if you focus on the goal, what is the goal? What do you want to get out of it? That's when you have people like, ooh, this is the why. Yeah. This is the why I'm here. Remember the what, why next. So tell them the goal and then just transition to the main point. Something like, all right, let's dive right in. Let's get started. Yeah.
Good. And it's a very easy like 4-step right here. You can use this playbook, just use it. And again, thinking about it, like if confidence in presentations is an issue, then right here you have a very clear 4-step where you can start strong, which is what we talked about being very important. And that's going to provide that confidence boost. So you feel a lot more confident going through. And it's always easier if you start on the strong foot, just kind of doing that. So I love that kind of 4-step right there. We talk about this, what I talked about the hook, right? And it's so weird that I do that. That was something that my elementary school teacher did when she was teaching us about like writing and you need to hook the reader. And she would always go like, you need to hook the reader. And I think about that now. And this actually gets to this point, right? Because the hook needs to be something that the audience remembers. It gets them engaged, right? This was a teacher, so many years ago, hooking us kids on her point, right? And that's what we really want to think about. Maybe you don't need to like do like weird signs or anything like that, but it is, how can you get the audience engaged? How can you get those people paying attention? And I love your examples here.
Yes, so the hook can be done in many different ways. A lot of people recommend statistics. This is the one we shared before. 75% of adults are estimated to be affected by a fear of public speaking. So you can start with a statistic. You can start with some misconceptions. What do people generally think about this topic that you're about to prove wrong? So you can have misconception 1, misconception 2. And people are like, that's how you hook them. Like, why are these wrong? I thought these were right. Some facts, like people are 22 times more likely to remember a fact when it has been wrapped as a story. This is also true. So use stories. Also, when we talk about stories here, this is a way you can hook people. I think this is very intimidating because it's like that hook, exactly. I think talking about storytelling and stories is very scary because people may think, I'm not creative. I don't know how to write. I don't know how to put that. It sounds very scary. But it can be an anecdote, something that happened to you truly, like when I fell off the stage in Vietnam. That's a story. I don't know if it was hooking anyone, but it definitely is a story. And then another way that you can hook people is to ask them to imagine. I took this from the Please Close Your Eyes. This is a real script, the transcript from a TED Talk that I watched not long ago. So it's something that you actually use. So close your eyes, open your hands, or imagine you were able to do this and that. That's just some ways to.
Interesting. And so you have all of these different ways of starting strong and engaging the audience, which is like what we talked about. You have your 4-step intro, and then we can engage, right? And I think that's huge. Now we talked about starting, we want to talk about ending, right? And what does that look like when we want to end with a powerful recap?
So usually you do want to summarize after each section, not only at the end. And there you can also use the rule of 3. Like, what are the 3 main points that you want to highlight? Assume that people are going to get distracted. I hope here people in the audience are not, but you know, it can happen. It can happen. So after each section, we did add a quick recap. And then at the end, try to restate the main points, just 1 or 2 sentences. And then try to add a memorable ending. Just what you started, you can do at the end. Like, again, a quote, a story, a meaningful image, an anecdote. And I feel that I see in the comments that one of you said, I feel insecure and these phrases will help me. They truly help if you don't think that your English is as good as you would like. Learn some short phrases that can help you start speaking. Here, we will send the slides later. But if you want to summarize, you can say, well, in other words, today we went over this and that. There's a lot in here. We won't go over them, but you can save them later. Or if you want to restate your point, then you can say, in short, in a nutshell. Those are just some phrases that we commonly use to recap.
Great. Yeah. And again, it's like that feeling of having security when you have your whole script written out. You're going to have that same feeling if you have a few of these phrases that you can come back to, right? And that's something that I know for myself. I have a few phrases that I use when giving presentations that I feel like when my mind goes blank, I can really jump to those very quickly. Okay, we're going to go through this design part pretty quickly, I think. Probably number 1, because like Paula said, neither of us are designers, but we've made enough PowerPoint presentations that I think Paula has the best kind of way to go through this. But we're breaking it down really to color, text, and visuals, right? And why are these components so important when it comes to, keeping the audience engaged?
Yeah, these are very, very basic tips that we're going to give, but that doesn't make them uncommon. And by that, I mean, these are mistakes that we've seen from adult professionals that are very knowledgeable and great at what they do. But these are the kind of slides that we've seen at some point, not very often, but at some point. So these are just the points where you can truly, without being a designer, you can truly make a difference. So here we have color. Like, what about color? Well, this is very hard to read. Wow. It's not aligned with what we had been doing before. So if we were using blue, why are we now using purple and pink?
Yeah, that's brutal. That's tough. And a lot of you from bigger companies will have like a standardized slide deck that you need to use, but we still see this as people just start pasting in different colors and splotches around and things like that. This is what we want to stay away from. Keeping consistency is exactly right.
That's it. You keep consistency. And now we went back to blue, but there's still a little mistake in this slide, and that is the contrast. So
Yeah.
if you skip this slide, if you go to the next one, make sure that you have the high contrast, dark over light or light over dark.
Yeah.
And then you can type intensity to guide your audience.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Round of applause for Paula. That was very nice. Exactly right. I love this point. Actually, I didn't know this until I watched I watched you do one of these webinars previously, and then I started using it because it was pretty nice. Yeah, you use that intensity where people they go to that word, right? If that's the phrase, that's the key point that you want to use that intensity, right? Use this color contrast to make it stick. What about text?
Yes, pay attention to the words you write on your slides because text can help you impact your presentation, but also use a font that is big and easy to read. That is exactly what I did not do.
Right. Exactly right. You want to use a font that's easy to read. So these are some great options that you have right here for your next presentation that you can use. Yeah, so text slides, right? You have these, I've seen this so many times where people just have slides and it's just blocks of text. That's tough, right? And that really is something that I think as an audience member, I don't want to see.
Yes, so here from all this like block of text, you can summarize it and just use these 4 words. Words impact your presentation.
Yeah.
Summarize it. This is much nicer than what we were seeing before.
Yeah. Imaging. Tell us about imaging, Paula.
Try to use simple images. Images are great, but if they're complicated or if they're poor quality, then it just doesn't add to the point. So try to use simple images and charts. Visuals are great. So try to use some of them if you're able to. You don't have to learn all the names, but here we have pie chart, a bar chart, a line chart, an area chart, a pictogram.
Yeah.
You can add variety.
Yeah. High quality pictures, of course. We don't want to put a grainy, like 10-year-old kind of MySpace profile picture up there, right? We want to have something that's nice, high quality picture. Video is one of these things as well. Implanting a video in your presentation, oof, that's tough. And a lot of times it doesn't work well. You want to be what your audience is engaged in, right? Not a video on the screen. So keep that. When using visuals, when should you actually use visuals, Paula?
Well, if they help the main point, if it simplifies information and it is appropriate for the audience. And again, I learned this the hard way. I once used an image that wasn't appropriate for the audience because of cultural differences. And then I learned, okay, is this appropriate for the culture? Is this appropriate for the age group? And then it is not animated or video. Here it depends. We said before, be careful with video and animation, because especially if it's a virtual presentation, it may not be received the way you're trying to project it, because you don't know what device your audience is using. You don't know their internet speed. You don't know if the audio will transfer. So just be careful and always try it out. If you do decide to do it, always try it out with a colleague or a friend before the session.
I love the aspect around simplifying information. I actually do this a lot where if I have a point or a policy or something that I need to explain, I'll try to think about how can this be represented in an image, in a visual, not a picture, but using very small blocks of text with then arrows to represent a relationship and everything like that. And I do that in a way to where I can then use that visual and people can easily pick up the meaning from that. I think that's a really great point. Yeah. This is a great example, right, of like what not to do. I think I get really, when I was in middle school, we had to like give presentations for the first time, and like we all would make these PowerPoints with just that would look like this, and this is the vibe that I get from it. Yeah, exactly right.
So
Okay,
the
so
same, I just wanted to point out the
yeah,
same, if you can go back to the previous
yeah,
one, that is exactly the same information as the previous one, just more clean and using
yeah,
fast and using simple text and a font that is easy to use. And, so it's the
yeah.
same information, just presented in a different way, much more clear.
Much cleaner. Yeah, yeah, great. Okay, so be careful with memes, gifs, puns, cultural references. Yeah, this is all, of course, like you said, think about the audience. That's always something that you want to consider. Okay, in a nutshell, we did, yeah, the strong start and the strong end, right? We talked about that recency, right? People will remember how you started and how you finished. And we gave a really nice kind of framework for those 1, 2, 3, 4 of when you're starting a presentation. The powerful recaps. Paula, what did we cover when we talked about powerful recaps?
Yeah, always add a summary at the end of each section, ideally 3, but sometimes this is not possible. And always add a recap at the end. So assume that people were distracted. Unfortunately, just assume and just tell them again and again and again. Over communication is always better. And
Right.
sometimes think, oh, but I've said this 3 times. People are just going to be totally over me and saying again, but truly, that is when they start. When you're tired of your message, is when people are starting to truly understand and pick it up, which is
Yeah.
that's how communication works.
I'm sure a lot of managers in the audience now are probably just like, yep, how many times have I said this? There you go. And so all of you that were checking your email during this last section, now you have yeah, a framework that you can see what we covered in the last 10 minutes. Okay, great. Let's finish with our third section, engaging delivery. And this is something that we work on a lot with our clients on, how do we do that? How do I give a presentation where I feel comfortable, where I feel like people are engaged with me and there is this flow between us? How do we do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this section, right? So the kind of language that helps you bring the message across, because there is a difference. There really is. How can you ensure that people are understanding your ideas, that they're walking away with a clear idea of what you wanted to present, and then keeping your audience engaged, right? Those are some very, very clear things that we want to focus on, and they're all strategies. They're all strategies that we'll work on. Okay, let's jump into it. So tell us a little bit about this. I think I just kind of I think some people were actually checking email just before, and then I called them on it, and now they're like, okay, I'm paying attention, right? When we're giving a presentation, yeah, what's happening, Paula?
Yes, so this is it's a very interesting survey conducted by Intercall a year ago or a couple of years ago, and it analyzed what people were doing during a conference call other than being present.
Yeah.
And that is 65% of people were doing other work or sending an email. So we can assume that more than half of our audience here, Simon, sent an email throughout this presentation.
No, I won't believe it. I won't believe it.
But the percentages are crazy. Like, yeah, social media, I get it, but playing video games during a work conference call or online shopping, exercising, it's
Yeah.
so what we wanted to say with this is that you have to assume that people are going to be distracted, and that's why you want to make your presentation really engaging and impactful. So
Yeah.
how are we going to do
Yeah.
it?
Especially today, everybody's just competing for your attention, right? Like you're fighting, a battle against all of these different things. So keep that in mind, right? Bringing across the message, we want to use simple vocabulary. And this is something that a lot of our clients, they were saying, well, I want to use this, advanced vocabulary, this professional vocabulary. Tell us about this, because this is kind of the opposite.
Yes. So that's a very, very common request that we get from clients. I want to use more advanced vocabulary. I want to use words that sound like big words. But what research actually finds is that you are more impactful when it comes to an audience, like big groups of people, when you use simple vocabulary. And there was a study that analyzed the speech of different presidential candidates, and they found that the most impactful ones used a great, what was it, 8, 7?
Yeah, something like that.
The
Yeah.
vocabulary of an 8th grader. I think we have the data there. And it was very interesting. So instead of
Yeah.
using big words, like I think you have examples there, like initiate, try to use start. Or instead of using attempt, go for the simpler one, try. And so you also use short phrases. It was necessary that we, why don't you
Yeah.
say we had to? If it means the same, one word is better than 3.
And what we hear a lot is when we've worked with some of our students on this, and then they go give a presentation, and the focus is not on sounding smart, but it's on communicating clearly. It's a totally different feeling, both the, what our students say and how they felt and how their audience engaged with them, right? Because people can see through if I'm trying to sound smart versus if I'm trying to communicate this message for you, right? The sounding smart is about me, right? That's just about how I feel about giving a presentation. But communicating clearly, that's how we do it for the other person, for our audience. And that's always the goal when giving a presentation, is that the audience walks away feeling like, okay, I got this, I understand. And I love this, who plus action, right? It's always using active voice, right? We don't want to give a presentation where we sound like we're reading an 18th century novel, right? We want to be active in our voice, and that makes a big difference in how people are engaging. Making sure that people understand, like, how do we do this?
Yes. So there's, again, this is a very summarized way, or these are just some hints that we want to give today. This is a very extensive topic, and we could talk about all the different sections for hours. But just for you to get an idea, if you're not sure if people understood, make sure that you repeat your ideas over and over again. You can do that through rephrasing. There's many techniques, but some of the most common ones are you can use a similar word like a synonym. So instead of saying let's start, you would say let's begin. You can use a different structure. So yes, you use the word start, but instead of saying let's start, you use shall we start? It's a question. You can use an idiomatic expression. Instead of let's start, you can say let's kick things off, or you can summarize the message that you just said. You can summarize it. I think it's important to point out what Abdurrahman asked in the chat. They said, what is the best method to organize your content and focus on the main topic? And here it truly depends on the type of presentation, your culture, who you're presenting to. But I really like, for the business world in an international setting, especially if you're presenting in front of managers or the board, is this bluff technique where you have the bottom line up front. So you start with the bottom line. What is the bottom line, the main point of your presentation? And put that up there. That's the first thing you talk about. And then you build up to it, and then you repeat it again. So that's a great way of thinking. You have that what, why, next. Think about your what, your why, and your next. Say it at the beginning and then repeat it at the end. I think that's a great way to make sure that your presentation is impactful.
Yeah, I think again, it does depend on the culture, but typically when we're in an international context, that form always works pretty well, because usually there's going to be people there that they want to know the reason that they're there right away, right? Because either they're pressed for time, or they are not sure, maybe they're only going to be there for a part of the presentation. They want to know that what, why, next at the beginning, right? And then you prove your case, you build your case with the details in the middle, and then repeat at the end. And yeah, I love that. That's a great way to structure it. And again, use the tips that we've brought in here today to do that. These are some great phrases. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but some great phrases that you can use. We have so many of these. We have a lot of free content with Talaera. So, go to our website and you can just see on our blogs, like all of these different phrases. We have this for presentations. We also have it for emails. A lot of my students, they just like use the email blog that we have and just use those phrases just because they're great to have, right? And we have the same thing for presentations here. But it's always good to have that kind of security when you do that. Okay, so to wrap up this section, Paula, what did we cover?
Yes. So if you were distracted and there's 3 points that you want to take away, that is, use simple language, rephrase the information, and then try to be as engaging as possible.
Yeah. And again, right, with the simple language, it's not about you sounding smart. It's about communicating clearly, right? And people walking away with that. And some of the tips that we covered in this one, that's what we're really focusing on. Okay, for those of you that tuned in halfway, what did we cover today? What was this all about? Paula, can you walk us through it?
Yes. So first we started with how can you convey key information, and remember to only keep what's needed. If there's something you can do through email or through a Loom video or through a short clip or audio message, just do it like that. Decide your what, why next. That is, what is your presentation about? Why should they listen to you, and what should happen next? And try to apply the rule of 3, which is exactly what we did in today's presentation and also on this slide, where you have 3 blocks. It makes it more memorable and easy to remember. Then when we talk about the structure, make sure you start strong with an anecdote, a statistic, a story, and end with a powerful recap. Just a very simple way of presenting all the information, and then use simple slides. And then when it comes to the delivery, use simple language, rephrase information, and also try to be human and entertaining. It's okay to share anecdotes. It's okay to bring your vulnerable self and to change your pitch and your intonation, and to interact with others. I see how people say that they have to leave. We just have a couple more quick thoughts.
Yeah.
We'll share the slides. But yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions. I did want to share this quick stat that says that 90% of anxiety we feel before giving a presentation comes from the lack of preparation. We're going to share a checklist. Actually, I am going to share it in the chat, and you can just use that checklist to prepare your presentation, where you have a lot of the things that we said here. We will talk about as well, and I'll answer this question, but I see that someone asked about questions and answers. We do have a whole new session on questions and answers. Marcia will keep you posted when we have that webinar as well. But if you want to avoid getting nervous, if that's you, if that's something that you feel, over prepare, truly practice, practice, practice. Learn useful phrases. We'll share a lot of the phrases later with the slides and additional resources. Don't write, you were saying before, Simon, that a lot of your clients write the whole script, but it's
no scripts.
Yeah, exactly. It's much better to learn to write down important chunks. And if you really, really struggle, only memorize the first sentence, just that. And then it's going to really help you when we said, practice the beginning, and it'll give you that confidence boost.
Yeah, and drink water. There you go.
Is a tip that I learned when I gave my first webinar online. I remember we had, I think it was 900 subscribers, people who registered. I'm like, I'm very nervous. And it really helped me. It was just myself. And it really helped me to take a sip of water. It's not because I was thirsty. It's because it gave me a moment to think. And I'm like,
There you go. That's right. Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated. Making sure that people understand, right? We talked about a lot of these, but recapping doing that throughout the sections, summarizing, repeating. We want to go over the message again, doing that a lot, because if you're a manager, you need to repeat messages. Okay, we are wrapping up for the day. There was so much. Again, we're going to share all of the slides with you, so don't worry, you will get all of those. We talked about all of the free resources we have at Talaera, so go to our website, check it out. We have webinars that we do both for companies, but then just our free webinars we do every month. We have ebooks, blog, we have our own podcast. If you are a fan of the podcast, awesome. If not, check it out. It is Paula and myself who are the hosts. And then, yeah, if you want to do English training, either for your company or just for yourself, reach out to us, let us know, and we will set up personalized training for you, for your company. And yeah, if it's presentation training, we'll do that, right? And you can walk out of here using the rule of three and using all of our tools and feeling much more confident and much more prepared. Of course, if you have any questions, any feedback, reach out to us. You can find us both on LinkedIn. So definitely let us know, send us a request. But otherwise, Paula, anything else that we need to cover before we end today?
We may be recording in a podcast episode live. We're meeting next week. For those of you who don't know, we've been working together for a very long time, but we never met in person, Simon, myself, and part of the Talaera company. So it's going to be a very exciting episode coming up. We'll see what the topic is. But yeah. There's going to be always new webinars every month. And then we always say, we listen to feedback, and it means we truly listen to feedback. Anything that goes to hello, I'm going to type it in the chat, hello@talaera.com is closely monitored, and we reply to every single request, every single email. If you have feedback, it was awesome, do more of this, we'll keep doing more of this, or we didn't like it, can you stop doing that, or we thought that it could be better if you did this other thing. We listen, we apply, we learn, we love learning and listening from you. And it truly helps to have that feedback, right? We thrive on people and feedback and contact, right, Simon? So I know this is virtual and it may feel a little bit impersonal, but we truly are here to help people. And that's what we are most passionate about. So absolutely, I just wanted to leave it out there.
100%. As we always end everything we do with our final message to all of you out there, thank you and keep learning. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. See you on the next one, Paula. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
See you. Bye, everyone.
All right, Paula. See you on the next one.
See you on the next one, Simon. Bye.